Well, hello again. This is the 26th of May 2024, and I've got Simon again, as he
Hello.
was so popular last time.
Absolutely, yes. I'm back once again.
Yes, it's been one of my most popular videos for about 3 years.
Has it?
Oh, no, not 3 years, maybe 2 years.
That's very good. Good
Yeah.
to know. Hopefully it's other people going on it rather than just me rewatching
Fingers crossed, yes. How many times can you rewatch yourself?
Well, indeed. But yeah, it's back again, so a sequel of sorts. So yes, it's... How long has it been since we did the last one?
It's just over a year.
Just over a year. Yeah, I would have guessed that, actually. So yeah, good to know. I wonder how many hits the previous ones have had.
The first one had 212 last time I looked.
That's a lot, actually. That's pretty good. Yeah. So I think maybe people start watching the first one and then they realise they're all like 20,
they're all the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, they're all 20-25 minutes, and then maybe by the time you get to the third or the fourth we exhaust them. But yeah, no, it's good to be back. So yeah, how's cool. So do you want to start?
You said you had an idea.
An idea of sorts, yeah, just to sort of maybe try and pick up on a few things from maybe the last 12 months. And maybe just anything that we sort of didn't kind of touch upon in the original video, I guess.
Right.
I mean, there's obviously lots and lots and lots of things.
There's always more things.
There's always more things. I don't know about you, but for me, this year, it's been 3 years since I got the autism diagnosis. And I know several people have said to me over time, who've been at this for longer than I have, that, it does take a while to kind of process things in your own mind. But one thing I'm discovering is that I'm still very much learning. It's quite a slow process.
Yeah.
That's...
Of course, with something like, well, with any kind of neurodivergency as well, there's so much being discovered all the time.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
right. That's right.
Yeah, it's still very much a new area of science, isn't it?
There is that, and I think also just in terms of your own kind of life, I'm not as obsessive about it at the moment as I was when I was sort of going through the diagnosis. I'm not sort of reading up on different things every day, but every week at least I'll watch something or I'll read something. And it's surprising, even now, how I'll read about other people's experiences or something, and I'll think, oh, I do that. I didn't realise that. In fact, one of the things I was going to say about mentioning, you actually mentioned this earlier, that you can almost come to the point with it where you start to think about your own character, your own personality, and you start to think, is everything I do autistic?
Yeah.
Everything.
How much of this is me?
Yeah. Do I only like the things that I like because I have certain tendencies towards being, shall we say, a little obsessive or wanting to organise, categorise information or something.
Although I think on the other hand, it leads you down this road of what would I be if I wasn't autistic? Well, it'd be a neurotypical, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like saying, what would I be if I was rich? Well, it'd be like a rich person. What would I be if I was French? Well, it'd be like a French person.
Yeah.
You'd be a different person. You wouldn't be yourself. There isn't a you that's not autistic, is there?
No, and that's the thing, because beyond a certain level of abstraction, you can't really truly imagine it, can you? Because as you point out, you'd be somebody else. It's a bit like saying, what would you be like if you had completely different experiences?
What if I was born in the 15th century? I'd be like a medieval person.
But I think there's something that's interesting about all of this is that, particularly I think for those of us who were sort of diagnosed late in life, one of the sort of key things about it all is that this is a phrase that's been going through my head a lot recently. You're not who you thought you were. You thought you were basically a neurotypical person.
Yeah.
And that you were having sort of issues and struggling to sort of do certain things, and certain situations would stress you. And then you discover that you're not a neurotypical person who's sort of struggling because there's other stuff wrong with you as such. You're struggling because you're autistic, or because you have these. So whether it's a sensory thing, whether it's a social thing, or cognitive thing, or whatever else, whatever your particular sort of areas are, that's basically it. So I think there's always got to be, the first thing is sort of an element of adjustment, and that's kind of the period I think I've been in really since then.
And then there's the question as well of how many of these things that you do are actual autistic traits and how many are things that have come about, that have sort of, alterations in your psychology because you are an autistic living in an holistic world.
Yeah.
Like having an anxiety disorder and such. Is that just part of being an autistic person or part of who you are? Or is it a result of, having to suppress yourself and, go along with all sorts of things that never make sense to you and so on?
Yeah, one of the things my partner has said to me several times is that since getting my diagnosis, I have become more, in inverted commas, autistic. And this is quite a commonly reported thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have, of course. You're still the same person. It's just that you stop masking as much.
And you become more aware of what you're doing.
And you become more aware of what
you're doing. It's not that you're mad. It's that you're autistic.
Yeah. And I think also you maybe start to realise that the people around you with whom you can really have the sort of conversations who are safe people, and you start to kind of maybe show them a little bit more of your true self. Yeah. Maybe, with sort of less. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I expect them to be understanding.
Yeah. There's been several occasions over the past year, for example, where my partner and I have been out together doing something, and something has happened to kind of flip the script on me, and I've had a bit of an episode, not a full meltdown. I haven't had one for a while, thankfully, but afterwards, I think it's not good that I kind of reacted this way in front of my partner, but on the other hand, it's good that she's understanding. She kind of gets that. You can go from 0 to 90 very fast, if you know what I mean, emotionally speaking. And I think particularly recognising certain triggers for that. One of them for me, for example, is I drive. Driving in unfamiliar locations. Like if you go to like a big city or something and you don't know where to park, and these sort of things can be quite stressful anyway. But I have noticed the last couple of times something's happened, it's usually been to do with that. We've been going somewhere and I've been trying to navigate to where we're trying to get to, and that tends
that's a big thing for me as well.
Yeah, there's something, I know people said this, haven't they, but there's something quite anxiety inducing about driving in unfamiliar locations anyway, isn't there? And
the idea that you might get lost.
You might get lost, and
you might inadvertently go the wrong way down a one-way street and get arrested or something.
Yeah, or just car parks, actually. Car parks can be one, there's nowhere to park, we're running late, all the spaces are taken, or you end up
when they've got one of those one-way systems.
You end up on like the 5th floor or 6th floor or something, and all that kind of stuff, it can be quite problematic. So I think a period of adjustment, like I was saying before, I think it is quite important. And it does take time. I mean, as I say, I'm now 3 years in, and I sense in myself that I'm still doing that. There's sort of coming to sort of terms with it, and just trying to kind of make sense of it all, I suppose, insofar as you can.
And looking over your past as well, and
reviewing things.
I mean, you can't analyse every single interaction you've ever had and everything that's ever happened to you, but there are things that suddenly click in your head, aren't there?
Things that sort of start to make a little bit more sense. I think. I mean, I can think of examples from the past. Some of them I even sort of quoted in my in my actual assessment. But particularly when I was a sort of teenager, there was always this sort of sense. I think I'm being a bit vague here, but there are specific examples where people at school, for example, seem to kind of almost instinctively know things that I didn't seem to know. So like, there'd be some teacher that would always joke about something, and I would sort of think, how do they know they're kidding? How do they know they aren't being serious? And just little things like that. It might not even be anything of any major consequence, but just something that makes you realise that you're on a slightly different page.
Or people don't know things that you think are obvious as well.
Yeah, that's another thing.
On the flip side.
Yes, how do people not retain this amount of information? I don't know about you, but my short-term memory isn't great. I forget where I put things all the time.
Yeah, where's my pen?
Yeah, but my long-term memory's always been very good. And the number of people over the years who've said to me things like, how do you remember all this?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, we have a visitor.
Zebedee.
how do you remember all these things? And you sort of, I don't know, you just do.
Yeah.
And there isn't an easy answer, is there?
Yeah. Like it always used to bother. It really puzzled me when I was at school. You know how so many kids in the class could get really low marks on tests.
Yeah.
When it was just being tested on what you've been told.
Yes.
And they've been in the lesson. They were there when the teacher was talking about it. How can they not know these things?
Yeah, and particularly if it's from literally the previous day
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, it's a sort of very short sort of time. It's funny. I sometimes wonder to myself. I mean, people thrive in different environments, but one of the happiest times of my life, I think, was when I was studying for my A levels, because one of the things about the college that I went to was that it had a uniform, so it was similar to school in that sort of sense. You had a bit more freedom than school because you obviously had free periods and stuff.
Yeah.
But in a sense, I kind of got what was expected. I knew what was expected. Like, I don't know, maybe it's sort of a bit hard to quantify, but for the most part, like, if you kind of memorise the material, and you were able to sort of write fairly decent essays based upon what you there was a correlation. If you put a certain amount of effort in, you were going to get this. And obviously at the time, I just put it down to I had friends and I'd picked good subjects that suited me. But looking back on it, I wonder if that was sort of part of it. But the real reason was simply that the environment being to some extent predictable and repetitive,
and having some control over what you are doing as well. It's you're not living your entire life governed by bells. You be at this place at this time.
Yeah, and just all of those things together made it very suitable or very sort of calming for me. Whereas university I struggled with, and it wasn't because of the work or anything. It was just simply because of the sort of the scale of it and the uncertainty of it. Suddenly there's a much bigger kind of area that you're operating in, and far more people, and it just seems a bit more vague, as to what's expected. And I think. I mean, there's a sort of stereotype, isn't there, that we like clear information and we like to be told, this is this, this is this. But I think until you've started looking into it yourself and really kind of explored it, if this is an issue for you, maybe even you yourself don't fully kind of comprehend just how much you need these things.
Yeah, or in what there's a lot of ways things can be clear or unclear as well, aren't there?
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that once you start, analysing your own behaviour, you think, well, I don't need somebody to tell me absolutely word for word what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But if you're getting lots of different messages from lots of different directions saying, do this, do that, then who do you prioritise?
Yeah. And how do I know if sort of this set of information sort of applies in this situation or this situation? I mean, it's a bit like when people sort of say things to you like, oh, you could have been friendlier in this situation. And you think, well, how? In what way could I have been friendlier?
Yeah, I mean, we can only really talk about these things in very vague terms, can't we? Which,
yeah.
I mean, even that in itself is kind of bothering me a little bit doing this, because I'm trying to think of specific examples.
Yeah, me too.
They're just general feelings that I have.
Yeah. It can be hard to pin down.
Yeah.
It can be very sort of hard to pin down.
Well, like where I work, we have several managers, and sometimes one of them tells you, you need to do, you need to empty all the bins.
Yeah.
And then the next day another manager says, oh no, you don't need to empty the bins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you think, oh, what do I need to empty the bins or not?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually do have a concrete example which actually follows that.
Yeah.
In the work I do, a few years ago we sort of had a kind of meeting and general how we're all doing and things, and I was sort of given like a kind of an idea that if I was doing sort of 6 pieces of work per day, that was kind of the number. So the trouble is that in my mind 6 means 6. And I didn't rigidly stick to it, but I always had that in my mind. And really most people would probably have taken a less rigid view than I have, and it's only recently that I've actually sort of raised this, and they sort of said, oh well, it doesn't exactly have to be that, as long as things are getting done. And the thing is that I won't say it's caused me massive worry or whatever, but I think a lot of people would probably have kind of tumbled that a lot faster than I did.
But do you sometimes find as well you feel resistant?
Yeah.
When you're told things?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, yeah, it certainly can do.
This is absolutely not what I was going to do.
Yeah, it can do. And I think as well, if you sort of get certain practices in place that kind of that they work and they work for you.
Yeah.
Then having somebody sort of question them or say, well, what's this and what's this? It doesn't even have to be work related. It can be in your everyday life. Your partner might say, what are you doing it like this for? And I suppose everybody can have these frustrations to some extent, but because it works, but communicating why it does is very hard work. And it's a lot easier to just simply do it sometimes, isn't it? Yeah. So to speak. But yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack, I think, basically.
Yeah.
And to a large extent, it's funny that getting diagnosed initially seems like, like a quest, which it is. But really, it's not the end, is it? It's the beginning. Yeah. It's the start.
It is.
It's the start. There's a cliche, you have your whole life in front of you, but you do, and you have it with this new knowledge. And the question is, what do you do with the knowledge? Some people might sort of, just park it and say, okay, well now I know, and that's absolutely fine. But I suspect that if you've had the kind of the wherewithal to really kind of question this stuff and go after it, it probably won't end there for you. It certainly hasn't for me, and probably not for you either.
Yeah, I do think that there is kind of a danger in, you start analysing and almost pathologising everything you do.
Yes.
Everything you've ever done.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you just do things.
Yeah, which leads us back onto that whole thing about, do I actually have a personality? What's really important to me? You're right. I mean,
what's me and what's the autism? Yeah.
You don't sort of want to.
Which sets you off questioning everything again.
Yeah. You don't.
Which isn't helpful when you're just trying to make your dinner.
No. No. I mean, you don't want to get to the stage where you sort of think that everything I've ever done has been as a result of autism or whatever. We're not sort of lists of symptoms. There's probably a happy medium somewhere, I think, isn't there, between sort of gaining insight but not letting it sort of become kind of navel gazing, which again is not always easy to kind of see where that lies, is it? The sort of the distinction.
No. What do you think? What do you think, Kat?
Yes, I think he's got some insights, but I'm not sure he's going to share them with us. But that I think is probably where I've been for maybe certainly for the past year, really. Just sort of thinking about things and recognising things within myself, speaking very generally, and just generally trying to sort of be happier in myself, I suppose, less anxious.
Yeah, have a greater understanding of why you behave in these ways and what you can do to stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, the example you were having, you were giving of the, struggling with finding your way around in the car.
Yeah.
And getting into a panic when you don't know where to park and things.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's, I've had a very similar issue, and I find, if I look on Google Maps before I go anywhere, I look at, the junctions where I've got to find the way and so on. If I can look at the route, plan it out, see where I'm going, see what the parking situation is, then I feel a lot better about it.
Yeah. I think that's probably true for a lot of people. To some extent, that's true for me. It's almost compartmentalising it, isn't it?
And I found this solution that works because I found out, what is actually upsetting me.
Yeah. I often find with these sort of things that what gets me most is when I actually get to the other end, finding somewhere to kind of park and or driving through town centres, because I tend to find motorways I actually like motorways, because I always say you always know where you are with them. Like you can get frustrations with traffic jams and all the rest of it, but at least you kind of have some idea. Whereas town centres, especially country lanes and stuff, that there's more possibility, I find, for sort of, you know, the unforeseen.
Yeah.
And
yeah, being on a motorway, it's almost like being on a train, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So
You just know, right, I get on here, I get off there.
Yeah. So I think the compartmentalising it thing, I think sort of works quite well. I think sort of setting expectations, you know, for what is this likely to involve. I have found myself actually, you know, when I'm going somewhere, like looking it up online.
Yeah.
You know, what does it look like? What kind of a place is it? That sort of stuff, just to sort of put that into your mind.
Yeah, so you know what you're actually looking for. You're not going to drive past it and be trying to look at signs and things you're driving by.
Yeah, and also when you get to the place as well, it feels more familiar. I guess you know, like that sort of thing.
That's it over there. Yeah.
Yeah, or you know, you're actually inside the space and it's all right. You know, you can sort of cope with it. But yeah, something like that, I think, can definitely help.
Yeah. And with you know, well, you were saying earlier about you know, you don't want to be getting upset and melting down, being in front of your partner. But of course, for me, it's kind of a bit more high stakes because I've got 2 kids with me a lot of the time.
Yes, you have.
And you know, if they start seeing me getting upset, they'll be getting upset as well.
They'll be getting upset too.
As I remember when I was a child, you know, the only thing that really scared me was seeing my mum getting upset.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of things that upset me, obviously, but you know, I didn't actually feel like I was completely alone.
Yeah.
Until my mum was losing it.
Yeah.
Which very rarely happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the odd times it did. I just, what on earth is anybody going to do? Even my mum doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember once I was late to get to a wedding. My cousin was getting married, and I was trying to find somewhere to park, and I was getting really stuck. And then the parking meter, the machine, it was swallowing all my money, and it wouldn't give me any change. You know,
Oh, no.
I was literally screaming at this machine, banging on it, trying to get my money out.
Yeah.
And you know, I had my son with me. He was only about 2 or 3 at the time, and he was crying because I was losing it. I mean, luckily my husband was with me, and he just said, "Right, I'm just going to take the keys. I'm just going to go and park the car somewhere else. You get to the wedding." And you know, I'm lucky that he was there.
Yeah.
I don't know what would have happened if he wasn't with me.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably I'd have just sort of sorted myself out eventually and got down to the wedding. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with stuff like that, isn't it? It's you know, sometimes somebody comes to the rescue.
Yeah.
You kind of think, you know, what on earth would have happened if they weren't there. But yeah, situations like that are quite nightmarish, aren't they? They just seem to kind of, you know, you can understand why people have, you know, stress dreams about.
Oh yeah.
You know, paying for something. It's almost like the exam dream, isn't it? And you know, like the sequence of events isn't kind of what you imagine.
Though I find my stress dreams lately have changed. I mean, well, like I was saying to you earlier, you know, I used to have the dreams that you got to get to your exam and you haven't studied anything, but now I sort of think at some point in the dream, hang on, I don't have to do this exam anymore. I'm grown up.
Yeah.
What am I doing this exam for?
Yeah.
I haven't been to school for 20 years. Why am I still going for exams? But the stress dream that I have now is that I've bought a house and I start going around the house and looking in the rooms and think, oh yes, this is all very nice, yeah, lovely, this will be the living room, this will be my bedroom, yeah. But then I keep opening doors and think, oh, this house is quite a lot bigger than I thought it was. And then I find, you know, what am I going to do with this room?
Yeah.
How am I going to decorate all these rooms? How much is it going to cost to heat?
Yeah, it's sort of like...
And then I'm getting lost now.
Yeah,
this house just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Oh God, these rooms are in horrible repair. They're all dropping to bits. The ceiling's coming in. You know?
Yeah, it sort of sets expectations that you feel you can't kind of meet.
Yeah, that's the stress dream I have. I mean, I'd be really interested if anyone's, you know, into dream interpretation or anything. You know, they can tell me what that means.
I do still have school ones, but they're not necessarily stress dreams. It's more, it's on the last day of school, and I'm kind of contemplating what happens next. So it's not so much that, you know, like awful things are happening. It's more just a sort of sense of, I suppose the interpretation's obvious, I guess, isn't it? You know, like I'm wondering what to do with my life. But there's a sense of, you know, ennui or whatever.
And it takes you back to that feeling of,
Yeah.
you know, coming out of school and thinking, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, that kind of thing. I've had a few of those recently. Increasingly so since over the last maybe 18 months. I maybe average one. Yeah, maybe average one every couple of months, maybe. So I guess that's something. So, you know, something to work on, I suppose, the sort of anxiety of it. Yeah, yeah, interesting.
And I have another. It's very rare I dream about my children, which surprises me because, you know, they're with me every day, and
Yeah.
they're the main focus of my life at the moment. But it's whenever I dream about them, I've always lost them.
Right, lost them.
Lost them.
Yeah.
I'm looking for them, so frantically searching around trying to find them.
Yeah.
I've had very few nice dreams about them.
That's
yeah. Or I suddenly realise I've got a third child and I've completely forgot all about.
Like in a soap opera.
Yeah.
Like when they do these ridiculous soap opera, you know, the stories where like suddenly somebody will turn up on the doorstep and it'll be like, oh, hello, we've never mentioned you, but come on in, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Although I had a similar dream before I had children. I used to dream that suddenly I'd found a pet that I hadn't fed for years.
Oh, right.
And it had just been living in the walls or something.
Living in the walls and it was still alive. Yeah. And it was angry and resentful because you hadn't been feeding it. Yeah. It's. I mean, I suppose to some extent all of these things must have something to do with our own sort of sense of self and how we kind of relate to the world around us, I guess. But yeah, the fears of abandonment maybe and neglect, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I suppose it's not me that's sort of being abandoned and neglected in the dream. It's the fear that I will be responsible for someone else's.
Yeah, almost like by proxy then.
Yeah,
sort of like a sort of sense that, you know, I could end up doing this to someone else. That would be terrible. Yeah, whether it's a pet in the walls or third sort of child. Yeah, but meltdowns and things, though, I think can be very sort of dreamlike, in that there is definitely an avalanching effect, you know, in the same way as if you have a dream, sometimes, you know, things can start out relatively okay and then escalate, and it's the same with meltdowns sometimes, actually. The speed with which they happen, it can be quite disconcerting. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. You look very thoughtful.
Yes, I am. I am.
What time are we on?
What time is it? It is 12:15.
No, I mean as in...
Oh, it is 27 minutes, 34, 35, 36.
Is that enough for a take?
I think so. Yeah. Shall we stop there?